RS software, that's the other interesting one. Remember, it actually went through a soft patch, then a couple of announcements came in as well. They've bagged an NPCI order, and which is why I reckon the stock is doing what it is doing, up 8%. Raj Jain, CMD of RS Software, joins us right now on the show to talk about what this would mean for the company. Good having you, Raj. Thanks for joining in. Tell us, how would this unified payment platform that you're developing be used by banks and telecoms across the country? What would it mean for you?
Absolutely. Good afternoon, and good afternoon, viewers. Really happy to be on this channel. Our take is that the UPI project, which the Government of India has, is really transformational in nature. From a perspective, if you look at back in 1960s, the first revolution happened with the Green Revolution for agriculture. In the 1990s, we had the telco revolution where India leapfrogged into the cellular technology. And now in 2015, we have the digital revolution. As we know, Prime Minister's agenda of Digital India and digital electronic payments is the way for India to get empowered as an economy. And this is really where our software with the UPI project is laying the foundation. And if we define this as the core layer, the core engine on which all the electronic payment transactions will ride on the digital front. At the back end of the core engine, all the different payment products which are offered by NPCI will be linked to it, whether it's your checking account, whether it's the RuPay card, whether it's IMPS, whether it's the Aadhaar account, all of that will link into that. On the front end of the engine, it'll link to all the payment service providers, and from the payment service providers, it'll come to consumers like you and me to be able to transact the payment transactions. If you really look at the Indian market for digital commerce, which, by the way, is conceived primarily of e-tailing, the Flipkarts and the Snapdeals of the world, but they are only about 15% of the commerce. The largest spend really in digital commerce today takes place almost 69% on the travel side. And this is going to quickly change because e-tailing, which is with the 10 million plus...
Raj, I think your investors would probably be interested in getting a few numbers as well. So just to make it simpler and the benefit of our viewers. This will be a multi-year engagement, we believe. So what's the scope and size of this project? What does it mean for revenues for you?
Sure, absolutely. So this will definitely be a multi-year engagement, primarily, and I'll tell you the reasons for that, is because today the volume of electronic payment transactions is fairly low in India, and only about 4 to 5% total payments take place electronic. Over the next 3 to 5 years, you can expect this to go multiple times, maybe 25 to 30%. That means 6 to 7 times growth enabled by the infrastructure, and that infrastructure is the UPI. And therefore, we look at this as an ongoing activity on two fronts from a company, from our software perspective. One is continuing to build and enhance the core infrastructure for the country, for the banks, for the PSPs. On the other hand, participating with the products like digital payment platforms, which are recurring revenue and which will reach out to the masses for them to transact payment activity using that platform. So you look at a combination of the two, that's the source of revenues on an ongoing basis from our software perspective.
Raj, could you run us through some of the financial details of this project win, of this contract? How will money be paid to you, since it's I would imagine that there's a bit of an annuity payment there because it's a multi-year contract. How does the execution get linked to the accruing payment?
Absolutely. There are two models of revenue out here. One is a transaction-based model for our digital payment platform, which we launched in due course of time. The second one is in terms of being able to charge on both on a fixed fee basis as well as on a potential transaction basis for the infrastructure that we are building for NPCI as well as in future for the banks and for the payment service providers, right? And so we see the upside for our software in being on the ground floor of the building of the infrastructure. We've done the same thing, by the way, starting 20 years ago with in the U.S. marketplace, where the first time we worked on a payment engine that was good for about 500 transactions per second, which is now slated for 54,000 transactions per second. And that's obviously a function of the growth of the electronic payments and the masses getting to it. We see
You're following, Raj. I'm sorry, I want to understand that a bit more. What model are you following? Are you following a fixed payment model, or are you looking at per transaction based payment? And if so, then what are the numbers there?
Okay, so I'm not at liberty to share the numbers with you right now, but the answer is we are following both the models. There is a fixed fee model, T&M model for the building of the infrastructure, and we are following the per transaction model for the payment platform, which we launched in the course of time. Have I answered your question?
Sense of the kind of revenue you see accruing from this project or over an annual basis, if there's a ballpark figure there?
So there is not a ballpark figure as yet. The reason for that is that this product, as you would well visualize, would go from version to version. And so could in this fiscal year, the next two versions could be completed. It's a function of that. So at the bottom line, we see an upside to the top line. We see this as a strategic activity for our software. We see it as a continuing growing contribution over the next 2 to 5 years for the company. Just like India will leapfrog, our software will leapfrog its India strategy with this project, moving on to the digital commerce and the digital payment enablement. Now, we will not specify the revenues as of now because it's very difficult to imagine, because you're looking at a marketplace which runs into lakhs of crores of rupees, which India is building itself into. So that is where the opportunity lies for our software.
Sure.
And we, being the world's exclusive player on IT and focus on the electronic payments domain, we believe that this is the combination. We've done this before with global players, and we'll do it now here for India.
So 30-second answer, Raj. The European markets have opened. I have to address them. But very quickly from you, some estimates of what your revenues and profits could look like for FY16.
So FY16 is a transition year for us. I've spoken on this channel before, and we are transitioning away from a pure IT services model to a IT services plus the digital enablement model. So, and plus we're looking at our M&A activity, we're looking at some acquisitions. So combination of that will see us for our revenue growth for this fiscal, and the strategy will play out over the next fiscal year onwards. It's a 3 to 5 year strategy that we're transitioning into.
And we wish you all the best for that, Raj. Thanks very much for joining us and giving us those details. A new contract win, and the stock is up 12%. The market is enthused as it's related to the digital business model, and that's something that's keeping most businesses, seeing momentum and perhaps in a bit of excitement mode. Let's just address the European markets. They've opened a bit somber.